Okay, hello everyone, welcome to the solution video for INF 154 assignment number 9. So yeah, let's jump right into it. This assignment is aimed at the creation and use of your own methods, okay? You should be able to click various buttons, and the area of the button should be provided in the list box below. So right there, I'm going to quickly add a list box. Furthermore, each time the button is clicked, its back color property should be changed to a random color using the .fromARGB method, and your own method to get a random value for red, blue, and green. An example is provided below. You can make the form with any amount of buttons, but include at least 5, so we're just going to go for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you must use method to complete this homework. Okay. Okay, so that's what theirs looks like. I'm going to make something similar, but only with 5 buttons. Let's make this guy like that big. A long one over here. That's there. Make this one a bit bigger. And let's just include a 6th button over there. Okay, so we got our buttons, we got our list box. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward the video while I quickly change all the name properties of each of these. Okay, done. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and create the 2 methods that we need, or how many methods? We're going to need 4 methods, one for each of the colors and one for the area. So I'm going to create my first method over here. For now, we're just going to create all public methods. So public, the first one's going to get an area, so we're going to return an int type data type, and we're going to say, let's say, get area. To get the area, we're going to need to bring 2 values through. So the 2 values will be an int for the width and an int for the height. We are then going to return area and return, and we need to obviously create an area. Okay, what is area equal to? Area is equal to the width times by the height. If you don't understand what's happening here, I'll go through it in a bit more detail soon. Actually, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it now. So to call this method, we want to call this method each time a button is clicked. So when the button is clicked, it will output the area over here. But instead of having this exact code in every single button click event handler, we're just going to have it over here in one method and then call that method every time. But obviously this width and height is different from this width and height. So we need to ensure that we can pass values according to which button is specifically clicked. So when button 1 is clicked, we're going to get the area, so we're going to call our get area method, and we're going to output pass the width and height of this button that was clicked. So button 1 is clicked in this case, and we're going to pass the width, and then button 1, btn1, passing through the height as well. You can see what you got to pass through according to the variables that you've named over here. If it's going to pop up, you got to pass through the int width and int height, which is what we created our get area method to receive. So now what happens when I click this button, it calls this method that I created over here by the same name, uses the name to call it. But when this method gets called, when we created it, we said we had to pass through 2 variables, 2 int variables. So, for example, we cannot pass a string variable through here. It gives us an error because we told it that it has to be an int data type. What 2 variables do we want to pass through? Well, we're going to pass through the variables we need to work out the area, which would be width and height. When that method then gets called, it creates a variable called area, which gets set to the area, width and height. This width refers to over here, so let's call it underscore width and underscore height. just so we can see the name of differentiation. Okay, so this width and height refers to this one. When this method gets called over here, it refers to the width and height of button 1. But for example, if we have another event handler for button 2, we can call that exact same method, but now we can pass through button 2's width and height, just like that. So when button 2 gets clicked, we call the same method, but now we're going to use width and height of button 2. It works out the area, returns the area. So where do we need to return the area to? So what return means is that once this method gets called, it runs this, and then it gives back this value. This value just happens to be the area in this case. So it gives back this value. If we just, for example, say message box.show, it's going to give us an error. Why? Because it returns a string, as we, an int, as we said over here. It's an int returning method. And a message box requires a string, so we're going to convert it to a string implicitly, and let's run it. This is under button 2, so we'll see when button 2 gets clicked, it should pop up a message box with the area of button 2. Perfect. But now they said that we need to put it in a list box, so lbox output.items.add with some message that's there. What does it say, that message? The area of button 1. So the area of button 2 in this case is, and then we get the area from our method, pixels. Perfect. So now we output the area. So we're going to do the exact same for button 1. We're just going to change that it's the area of button 1, and we're going to pass through button 1's width and height. Perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the same for all of these other click event handlers. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these instead of writing the same line of code, this one continually, we're just going to write this one continually. We could call different, use one click event handler and then pass through the buttons that was clicked width and height, but instead we're just going to keep it as separate click event handlers for ease of understandability. So just let me change these final ones. So now, whenever a button gets clicked, we're going to add the area of that button to our list box. So if I click 1, it should be a huge number, and 5 a bit smaller, 3 a bit bigger, 2, 4, and 6. Cool. Perfect. So now we need to do the second part over here. Each time the button is clicked, its back color property should be changed to a random color using the whatever method. Okay, so we got this method done. We're going to then create another method. Again, just public in this case. We're going to return an int value. And we're going to say set green. Let's call it set green. And we're also going to return green. What will green be? No, green. And we're going to set green over here. Green will be set to a random number. Set blue and set red. This one's going to be red, red, blue, and blue. So these need to be random numbers. So we're going to create one random object that can be used for all of these methods. myRandGen, which will be equal to a new random object or random instance. I'm going to set green to be equal to myRandGen.next. The color spectrum is between 0 and 255. Top border or upper limit is exclusive, so we make it 256. There we go. So now we set green, set blue, and set red, right? Now we need to call these methods each time a button gets clicked. So we got that part. Then we can set btn1.backColor to be equal to a color from ARGB. And then we can say which color is first. I don't know the order of these. And red, green, and blue, RGB. Whoops, set red, so we set red first. We then gonna set green, and then we're gonna set blue. So what does this do? Let me just end it off here. So we're gonna set the back color of our button 1 to a color from ARGB, which is a color from a bunch of int values, right? These int values we get from our method. So in this case, we get the red value by calling this method. This method then creates a variable called red. It sets it to a random number between 0 and 256, and then returns that random number and puts it in over here. Then this one does the exact same. It goes sets green, green to a random number, returns green, green then gets placed over here, and finally calls set blue, creates an integer blue, sets it to a random number, and then returns blue, which it returns over here. So that is that. We then just need to do this for each button. Button 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Let's go ahead and test it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. It's got our areas. Colors are randomly generated, same as theirs. So just for a bit of user friendliness, we're going to set, once button 1 is clicked, we're going to set btn2 to have the focus. Once button 2 is clicked, we're going to set it 3, and so on. So it basically jumps over to the next one. Once it hits the last one, it goes back to the first one. So now we can see 5, 4, and 3. We can test it nice and quick. So we just click and then we can keep testing. Colors are randomly generated and the area is calculated. Let's go ahead and take a look if there is anything else. We must use methods. Well, we've used our 4 methods over here. 1 for the area and 1 for each of the colors. Check the rubrics. Well, no errors. That's get that mark. Methods used for area calculation. We've got that. At least 5 buttons. We've got 6, so we're good there. That's the same. Methods used to get green, blue, and red. We do have methods for each of those. Colors are indeed random, and methods used for area calculation. That's the same as the other one. We've already got that. So, a pretty quick, fun exercise. Teaches us about methods quick. Just make sure you understand that a method can return any type according to what data type you put over there. So whatever data type you put over here, it needs to return that type of data. So we can say return, and then we need to create a string my s, which can be equal to nothing, and then it must return my s. If this was, say, a bool, we would need to return true or false. So true or false. Same as any other data type. Whatever the data type is over here, we need to return that data type at the bottom. If you don't want a method to return something, you just want it to, like, I don't know, calculate something, you can make this a void method. So then it mustn't have the return keyword underneath it. It just does a bunch of things and doesn't return anything when it gets called. So yeah, void is if you don't want to return any type of method. If you want values to be passed through this method, so to be given to this method every time it gets called, you need to say what the data type of those values must be. Let's say string. and what it's going to be. Let's say name, int age, and like double price or whatever. Whoops, double price. So you need to say data type and name. Then when you call that method, let me just call it over here, return something. It's not going to return because of the void. Let's just say return bool and return true, just so that it's happy, no errors. When we call this method, return something, if we click open brackets, we can see here that we got to give it a string name, an int age, and a double price in that order. I can't say 0, comma, John, comma, 1.9, because that's not the order that it is in over there. We have to keep it in the same order. So we have to say John first, 0 for our age or whatever, and 1.9 for the price, and then it's happy. Okay, that's about it. I hope you guys found this video useful, and yeah, good luck for exams, guys. Cheers.